At the G20 summit, Chinese President Xi Jinping proposed to the world a global QR code system as a way to help open up travel amid the pandemic. It involves a mechanism that would allow global recognition of a person's travel and health records, including COVID-19 test results.
From tech to big hospitals to banks and restaurants, many businesses across the country are now demanding employees get vaccinated. For non-corporate, smaller businesses, some owners are even more direct in their stance.
If an employee didn't want to be vaccinated, it was very simple. We respect the decision, and that employee is terminated.
People say in China they're being forced to get inoculated against their will. Netizens revealed their experience on Chinese social media platform Weibo, saying, "My company is forcing me to get vaccinated. If I don't, they won't let me go to work." One netizen says a health center in China's Fujian province mandates employees and their families to get vaccinated. If not, salaries will be suspended. Despite being coerced to getting inoculated, authorities sometimes make citizens sign a waiver that declares they got the shot voluntarily. This is reportedly what happened to Liu's father and could have made her fear that the state would cause her trouble. Beijing wants to attain a high vaccination rate across China, and this appears to be just one of the means of achieving these ends.
So the vaccine is a complex gift. It both gives you a sense that you are protected, but it ought not give you a sense that you're free to do anything you want. The fact that you have the vaccine means that you've accepted the gift, and the gift comes with some strings attached. When you say, I'm not going to get a vaccine, but I want the right to continue to work, I want the right to get on an airplane, and the right to go hear the opera, what you're doing is you're imposing that choice on me and on anyone in the community who might be more vulnerable.
Civic leaders need to use their privilege to advocate for communities that have been marginalized and have suffered the disparities that we've seen unveiled through this COVID-19 vaccine. The public health system has to be set up in such a way that every citizen in every urban area, in every state, is a part of how care gets delivered within our cities and states, and not with the system of separatism and fragmentation and two systems of healthcare for the poor and healthcare for the affluent. We can't operate a public health system that way.
Mandatory vaccination orders have appeared across Chinese provinces. Local citizens can either get the shot or face restrictions on their daily life, such as being banned from hospitals, schools, and nursing homes. In a city in Anhui province, city officials issued a notice earlier this week, saying starting Wednesday, the city will check proof of vaccination and ban unvaccinated residents from accessing public services. The notice says if unvaccinated people infect others, they will be held accountable.
In Indonesia, doctors who received Sinovac have become patients. Hundreds of them have tested positive despite full vaccination, and tens of them have lost their lives. And then we have countries like the Seychelles, Bahrain and Mongolia, where the infections are rising despite half of their populations being fully vaccinated. All these countries mostly relied on Chinese vaccines, and now they're being forced to ask some serious questions. Some of them should be directed at the World Health Organization.
The Delta variant has triggered a crisis. The caseload has skyrocketed. The death toll is soaring. And the failing efficacy of a certain vaccine has triggered outrage. China's Sinovac. In August 2020, Indonesia signed a multi-billion-dollar deal for 50 million doses of Sinovac. 10 months on, the Made in China shot has triggered a crisis. On the receiving end are Indonesia's doctors. At least 20 doctors have died despite being fully vaccinated with Sinovac. 10 of them died this month. And 31 other cases of doctor deaths are being investigated. Indonesia's health workers are alarmed. Around 90% of Indonesian doctors, 160,000 in total, have been vaccinated with the Chinese shot. Most of them are ending up sick. In the town of Kudus, 358 medical workers have tested positive in a 2-week span. In central Java, 300 vaccinated doctors have been infected in 1 month. The health system is close to collapse.
Fact: COVID-19 vaccines are safe and effective.
Millions of doses have already been given in the United States, and
these vaccines have the most intensive safety monitoring in U.S.
history. If you have any questions, get answers from a reliable source. cdc.gov.
This is Peter Doshai, Senior Editor of the British Medical Journal. Now, he says this: the FDA should demand adequate, controlled studies with long-term follow-up and make data publicly available before granting full approval to COVID-19 vaccines. Is the original Pfizer press release. So that's this one, Pfizer press release. Obviously, all the references are there for you. Now, this is from the 1st of April 2021. The vaccine basically is highly effective with a 91.3% vaccine efficacy. Published 23rd of August. Yeah, 23rd of August. The FDA's release. Now, obviously, this is a lot more time has passed now, so obviously we'd expect the data to be fully updated, as the FDA have done this massive full review of just about everything to give it full approval. So let's see what the latest data is. So that is from this here, FDA full approval. That's the link. Based on results from clinical trials, the vaccine was 91% effective in preventing COVID-19 disease. Oh dear. So Israeli data here now. This is a Reuters report. Vaccine effectiveness in preventing both infections and symptomatic disease fell to 64% since the 6th of June. And of course, in Israel, they are now starting to give a lot of third doses. So Israeli data, 64% there. And if we just remind ourselves of what the FDA approval report said, published on the 23rd of August. Yep, 91% effectiveness. The reason that a lot of people are concerned is this. The company now predicts 2021 sales of $33.5 billion. I mean, we're dealing with money that's off the scale here. Pfizer and BioNTech now expect to deliver 2.1 billion doses of, I haven't learned to say this word yet, Comirnaty. That's the new Pfizer BioNTech vaccine, how it's being marketed worldwide this year, and manufacture 3 billion. Wow. Those questions for the FDA remain. Why was your information apparently out of date on your press release of the 23rd of August? What is the new figures, and when will we be able to see these new figures?
On the 23rd of January 2021, Brazil's health ministry put out this statement citing excerpts from Pfizer's pre-contract clauses. These are Pfizer's demands. Look at this. Number 1, Brazil waives the sovereignty of its assets abroad in favor of Pfizer. This is a vaccine company. Number 2, that the rules of the land be not applied on Pfizer. Number 3, that Brazil take into consideration a delay in delivery. Number 4, that Pfizer is not penalized for a delay in delivery. And number 5, in case of any side effects, Pfizer be exempted from all civil liability. The government of Brazil calls these clauses abusive, and they're right. It goes without saying, the Pfizer deal with Brazil failed too.
Shares in Moderna and Pfizer sank on Wednesday after the European Union drug regulator said it was looking into possible new side effects of the company's COVID-19 vaccines. That includes kidney inflammation, an allergic skin reaction, and a renal disorder with heavy protein loss in urine. Pfizer is by far the biggest supplier of COVID-19 vaccines to the European Union, issuing just over 330 million doses in the region, compared to some 43 million from Moderna. It's also looking into menstrual disorders as a possible side effect of vaccines, including those from AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson. Last month, the EMA found a possible link between very rare heart inflammation and Pfizer and Moderna's vaccines, which use mRNA technology.
Is there hope, or better yet, data, that getting this third booster shot could actually prevent transmission?
So there's actually hope. We don't have data yet.
When we deploy antibiotics unnecessarily and very widely, we know that we develop antibiotic-resistant bacteria. The same concept applies in vaccinology with viruses. So what would happen should we have an emergent supervirus that is able to evade these spike vaccines? It is likely that it would cause disease in those that have only received vaccine as opposed to those that have had natural infection and have much broader immune responses. Risk creation of virus strains that are able to evade that. And paradoxically, the people that it will put at risk are the very people that need the vaccine the most, which is our elders and those that have pre-existing medical conditions and morbid obesity. So the logic is vaccinate those reserve the vaccine for just them and don't vaccinate the general population that are at extremely low risk. Now, the argument is made that this falls down because vaccines really work through herd immunity. And by my not accepting vaccine or you're not accepting vaccine, you're putting the population, the herd, at greater risk by being an individual susceptible to infection and spread. But now that logic is harder to sustain with leaky vaccines, with vaccines that are something in the range of, we could argue, 40 to 60% protective against infection, replication, and spread. It's still looking like they're 80 to 90% protective against disease and death. But in terms of herd immunity, the CDC slide deck that I referenced earlier doesn't get us there. I think that mandates are tenuous in a fundamental bioethical way. They violate the concept of the integrity of self and the rights of the individual to accept or reject medical treatment based on informed consent, which we do every time you go and have a surgical procedure. When I had my colonoscopy, I had to give an informed consent, and they had to explain the risks, right? And we've said that, well, in the special case of vaccines, because of herd immunity, we're going to let that ride. But then the underlying thesis that this is going to get us to an endpoint, we're going to compromise our ethical principles because it's going to yield a favorable result. That gets back to my point about the social contract. We're going to insist and reinforce that you take this product to provide a benefit that actually isn't there. It's not going to get us to the point where we've mitigated the risk to your fellow man. So for me, I find the mandate logic to be divisive, authoritarian, impractical, and unnecessary.
I don't understand how a university can require a young student who already had COVID maybe, so they have natural immunity, but require them to take the vaccine. And even if they haven't had COVID, they are very small risk, but they are forced to take the vaccine if they want to go to the university, while there are older people around the world who have not had the chance to get this vaccine yet. It's unscientific because it's basically denying the existing of natural immunity from having had COVID disease, and it's unethical because it's leading to more death in other countries. So I think the universities should all change their policy of not having any of these vaccine mandates if they want to live up to the age of enlightenment, where we actually believe in science, including natural immunity, as well as we behave in an ethical manner. Vaccines is one of the greatest inventions of mankind. Yes, it has saved countless lives. But when people are concerned about the safety, that's a serious thing. And I'm obviously very concerned about it because a lot of what I do in science is to study the safety of vaccines. So one has to take people's concerns seriously and then be honest with it. So as public health scientists, we have a lot of work to do for many years to come to regain that trust, because I think that the loss in trust is very understandable.